Without Context.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Without Context podcast. We just have a regular episode today. Yay! I'm Decavolty, joined by SharkyHat, and we've got Alvin. Look at that.
Here.
I'm here.
We've got the Skyebreaker himself.
A man who breaks skies.
Man who breaks skies.
One of the rarer side hosts that come to the show.
I exist, I promise. I'm just very tired all the time, always. Like
God,
that
ain't
movie.
that a mood.
I think we were pretty adventurous setting up hey, we're gonna have a podcast with 5 hosts. It's like
It was always going to be like, so we can interchange them.
yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
interchange, and then it's like it just turned into all right, seems like we have a core and then we just bring whoever is awake at the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm looking at Duck. Fucking took a nap one day. Didn't get back to me.
Damn, call them out. Why don't you?
I
well,
will.
yeah, they were supposed to fill in for I think me during one of the weeks, and it was like Charlie was on the Discord. It's like I just woke up. It's like,
I remember that.
but yeah, so we're here, kind of one of our little impromptu episodes. We came up with the topic today before recording.
Last
how we
night
usually-
at 2 a.m. is
Last
how I
night,
feel
2 in the
when I get up
morning.
with this.
I saw the message when I woke up, so this is how we do things on the podcast.
Yep.
Today we're talking about sequels,
Yeah.
franchises, sequels, thoughts about them,
Any medium.
any medium, and Deco can go into more since he thought about it in his late night stupor.
Yeah. Sequels, we all have, they usually start off as it's either going to be a trilogy or more than 2. In other words, very rarely nowadays is it like just a second one and they're done. Even if they should have,
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of
Even
people
if they
also
terribly should have.
are like, "Hey, I've only made this movie in mind with one movie, but the studio is now badgering me to make a sequel."
Uh-huh.
So
And so one of the first things I want to talk about is what do we like about sequels, and just in a general sense, not in any of your favorite franchises, but what do you like about this a sequel to a movie or your video game or what have you?
we'll let Alvin talk as he's guest today.
I think for a sequel to be good, it doesn't have to be better than the original. That's not like the intention, but it has to make characters that we already know and love either more lovable or like have good character development. That's like the base of it, right? Because like you can't have a sequel and then have the characters be stagnant the whole time. You can't just be one dimensional, you
The
know?
name is the growth.
Yeah. You got to grow the characters. You can't just have them be boring characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
But
with,
no,
I didn't finish.
no, you first.
So I was thinking with it's probably my thought of like with the remakes in games recently is that it's taking that first idea and making it that and more. And we were talking about it before the recording. 2 of my favorite trilogies are 2 of the trilogies that have what many consider to be the better sequels to the first movie. Like the sequels are better than the original, and that is Terminator, where Terminator 2 is just strictly better than Terminator 1 in almost every way.
Correct.
And Aliens, which is better than Alien in almost every way. And James Cameron is the one he's the one guy who did both of these. But it takes that thing, like Aliens, it takes that confined space of the ship, moves it to a colony. It's not one alien, it's a nest of aliens. And then it's like, okay, how do we go bigger? We introduce the Queen, not just this drone alien from the original. And then you have a bigger cast. You have Ripley, who is tired of the bullshit already, who has dealt with these things. And then you have all the lovable Colonial Marines who also appear in the Terminator movies for the most part. Because James Cameron is like reusing his cast a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, the same thing with like what Alvin said. Like it takes Ripley's character, it develops her, and then introduces this new cast that she can like build off of and, form connections with. Because for the most part, Alien is just a slasher movie in space. and she's the final girl, but now she's the lead, and he's like, hey, I'm leading these Marines because I've dealt with this bullshit. You guys have no idea what you're fucking dealing with here. And Terminator 2 takes that concept of, oh, there's a machine coming back to kill John Connor, but we're also going to throw in this thing now where that machine, you assume it's Arnold because of the first movie, but then it's like, oh, it's this other guy who's this upgraded model, and now Arnold's the one protecting him.
Yeah,
like,
that's
and then you get the iconic scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
It turns it on its head, right? Like, because in every sequel, you're like, oh, he's the bad guy in the last one. If he comes back, he's the bad guy in this one.
And it does a good job of making you think that too, because when you get Arnold and you're like, oh, he fucks up some guys in the bar, he takes the gun, he takes the bikes, and then the second guy comes in and you think this like, okay, this is the Kyle Reese of this movie because Kyle Reese came second and he knocks out a cop and he dresses in a cop uniform. So there's like that weird sense of like, okay, he's a protector, like he's somebody who's looking to protect John. He's wearing a police officer's outfit. And then it just is like, oh, James Cameron might have predicted the whole cop thing a little early. It's like,
James Cameron invented ACAB.
Yeah. But it's a great reveal too, because like you see him in the hallway, they're both coming down, and the fucking shotgun comes out of the box of roses, and he grabs John Connor and turns to shield him, and it's like that's when everybody's like, "Wait a minute, what's happening here?" Second. And it's like you learn he's this upgraded Terminator, and it's like that's the thing. It takes that first idea and it improves on it. It turns it on its head. It subverts your expectations. It just makes it bigger. And it's like that with Dead Space 2 could be an example. Dead Space 1 feels like Alien. And then Dead Space 2, you're on a space station. It's a wider area. There's a lot more action to it, but it's that same formula.
Mm-hmm.
What about yours, Decker?
Glad you asked. I think some of my favorites have been BioWare Part 2s. Like we mentioned before we started recording, Mass Effect 2, Dragon Age. Of the 3 Dragon Ages, my favorite is 2, strictly because it does its best take, like, Dragon Age Origins did not age well. You can fight me in the comments.
I think everybody
did not age well. Like, I don't think they would. It is slow. It is plotting.
It's Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2.
Yes. And Mass Effect 2 and Dragon Age 2, they kick up the pace a little bit, and they make combat much more action, way more dynamic. Your choices feel like they have more weight to them.
Yeah.
And then they shit the bed with Part 3 both times.
I think that's the thing with Mass Effect 1 is that there are set points in the story where characters can die. Mm-hmm. Like you have to choose between Kaidan or Ashley in a mission. But I don't think anybody else has like a real chance of dying in that story. They can not be recruited, I think. But Mass Effect 2 is like, hey, these characters, build your, trust with them, because in this final mission, you're going to have to divvy up your team. And if they don't trust you, they're going to die. So
it's like you were mentioning with the other movies and the things. They raise the stakes, they do bigger. And it's always gonna be with Mass Effect, it's always gonna be like a fate of the universe sort of situation, but it's always like who's the baddie at the end of it. And like you mentioned, Alien 1 was like one random xenomorph.
There's one random xenomorph, and then it's like here's a nest, and here's what makes them.
And here's the queen. Yeah, exactly. And like Mass Effect 2, it was like the Collector or whatever his name was.
The Collector base.
The Collector base.
And,
and then 3 was just the Reapers en masse.
Yeah, it was like, hey, we're fighting this one guy who is under the control of this strange entity. And then Mass Effect 2 comes around and is like, here's the Collector. Oh, they're also working with them, but this is more of like an army kind of thing going on. And then 3's like, yeah, here's the big fuck off invasion force. And choose what RGB color to save the universe.
Yeah.
Which is the most disappointing thing.
Oh, the worst thing. It's like, I've talked about in the past about how Mass Effect 3 is maybe the most disappointing thing. Like, if you just shaved off the last 45 minutes of the game, masterpiece. Awesome. Game of the year.
Yeah, like
Just that last bit right there.
the last enemy you fight in that game is a common enemy. It's one enemy between you and the fucking beam you have to go up, and then there's no combat for the rest of the game. And I'm like, bro, you could have had like this whole like charge towards this beam just be like a literal gunfight. Like not an event, but like just make it a fucking level that I could just shoot my way through to get to this beam.
It could be a QTE.
No, because that's what happened with Warhammer Space Marine, and I was incredibly upset at the end of that game. I'm playing through this game. I get to the last boss. I kill the mooks, and then it's like the last fight in that game is a fucking QT, and I was like, I'm mad. I'm so mad at this game.
To be fair, it was a 2008 success. Yeah, it came off the success of like God of War.
Yeah,
and, like,
it's a 2008 game, so I'm not gonna put it past it. But I'm hoping that Space Marine 2 follows the trend of series that I like, where 2 is strictly better than the first one.
That's why we're talking about this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think Dragon Age did similar things where the stakes were raised higher, and and then there was payoff where they you're introduced to the Red Lyrium en masse and the abomination at the end of it, and then the explosion that starts Dragon Age 3, and that's a really cool start to the game. And then it kind of peters out at the end. Or it doesn't even peter out at the end for Inquisition. It kind of peters out towards the middle.
It just feels like BioWare doesn't know how to like. They had the Stephen King thing where how do I finish this book?
Like you just keep going, have DLC, and it just keeps going and going.
Yep.
But it's a sequel. There can be sequel, and also the things like a sequel to me, like it should just improve on that first movie in some way. Mm-hmm. But you can also do a sequel that's just another story in the universe. I would say that's kind of like a cheap way to do a sequel where it's like, hey, this character's story's done. Now we're doing something new. And
see, to me, that's just a spin-off at that point.
Yeah, at that point, it's like a spin-off. It's like how John Wick is getting a spin-off series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2, I think they're making a TV about the Continental, but also like Ana de Armas is getting a movie from that universe. So that's another thing. John Wick. John Wick's another franchise that fucking does that. And
Jesus Christ, John Wick is so good at that.
It's like John Wick is like, hey, look, John Wick 1, this stupid gangster kid kills his dog, and it's like a one man's tale of revenge. And then 2's like, here is the entirety of this secret society of assassins that we have, and it's like, that's world building. Like, I guess
that's world building, yeah.
And then 3 does the same thing, and now it's like I need to go see 4 when it's here. So
4 I've heard nothing but good things about. I have to see it as well.
Yeah,
I truly want to just binge 1 through 4 now.
What's another one for you, Alvin? Another
all right.
I'm gonna dust off the hands for this one.
Yeah. All right. So a sequel that I think is definitively better than the original is 100% Top Gun. Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, you did see Top Gun Maverick lately.
Goddamn masterpiece.
I hear it's pretty good too.
I wasn't even alive for the first Top Gun. I still love that fucking movie. Top Gun 2 takes everything from Top Gun 1 that you love, and it's just modern day. Tom Cruise hasn't aged a fucking day.
That's just Tom Cruise.
The Scientology keeping him alive.
It's fucking planes. Like, I don't know. I know it's propaganda for the military complex of the United States of America, and Haley hates the fucking movie, but it's a good movie because like building off what we were saying earlier, like what makes a sequel good, right? This is a sequel that came out, fucking 40 years after the original. Yeah. But it takes the character that and it still gives him layers. It takes big story points from the original and builds on it, and that's what makes it really, really good because it builds new relationships with characters that introduces characters that you don't know but you still connect with, and then it's a whole different story. It's similar, and then like there's big story points like in the movie where it doesn't go the way you expect it to. You just think, oh, it's going to be like Top Gun 1. It hits these points. Everybody goes home happy. There's like a little twist in the middle and like Yeah, it's a good fucking movie.
That's the thing, right? A good sequel, it makes you appreciate the original. It also
exactly.
subverts your expectation when it starts to do that thing where it's like, oh, this is the same fucking thing.
And then it's like, wait, no, it's not.
It's like,
but it's really close.
Wait, there's more.
But
yeah, I heard great things about Top Gun or Top Gun Maverick.
It's so good. I'll watch both movies any day of the week. I don't care.
Can we talk about all of those random like in the 90s? It's just like one after another of like sequel action,
like animated movies.
No.
Oh, that too.
Just
like
anything.
Live action films.
I know what he's talking about. It's like
Speed.
Hey, we're gonna make Speed, and then we're gonna make Speed 2, which is subjectively worse. And then it's like, hey, we're gonna do these like 5 Lethal Weapon movies.
Yep.
Or something like that. But you also get that nowadays too with franchises. I mean, Fast and Furious is on its 10th movie. And that movie was
further than that.
That movie was about street racing and stealing VCR players.
Like, the first one, yeah.
And now it's like, okay, we're doing this whole like the thing is like if you just took the Fast and Furious movies and just called it Hot Wheels, it would make way more sense. Like this is a live action Hot Wheels spy movie. You know? It's like it just feels so weird
making hand over fist in these films.
It's just so weird like having it be like Fast and Furious, which is like a legitimately good like crime movie. Like even now, like it still kind of holds up. And then you get 2, which is a little bit better because it's the 2 of them partnered up being undercover. And I love Too Fast, Too Furious. It's one of my favorite movies. Good. And then it's just like
Tokyo Drift is the best of the series, and I won't be taking questions.
Correct.
It is good. It's one of those things where it's like that's a good third movie because a lot of movies can't nail a good third movie either.
Yeah.
I mean, you have franchises like Lord of the Rings, which hits kind of every sequel that it did at the time. Like each Lord of the Rings gets better.
It's different. It's all different at the same time too.
That existed already.
Yeah. So it's like, and they also kind of put it out like one after another. So.
Yeah. They probably just did one continuous cycle of filming, to be honest.
I think they did the last 2, like the second and the third. That was just all filmed at once. I know that's true for Pirates of the Caribbean, and those movies are really good. Not the ones after that, like the 4th and the 5th. I think there's a 6th one.
I think
those are terrible.
The 4th and the 5th, I haven't seen. The last one, was it Dead Man Tell No Tales or something like that? I saw that one and I like what they were setting up, but then at the end of the movie it's like, oh, we're gonna just like circle back to this plot point by this returning character, and it's like, no, come on, man, you had such a good like you had a good Gen 2 like setup here.
I know what you're talking about because Barbossa comes back at the end or whatever.
No, at the end, well, I mean this whole thing's probably like spoilers for this whole episode, but at the end of Dead Man's Tales it shows the curses of the ocean are lifted. That's what the whole plot of the movie was.
That's right.
Will Turner is on he's back on shore because he's allowed to be back on shore. And then fucking Davy Jones walks into the room. It's like, it's clearly Davy Jones. You don't see him. You see like his peg leg and stuff, but you can see the silhouette.
His wet ass legs.
And I'm like, you had a whole Gen 2 setup. And we're going back to this? Like
it's weird because like I really like Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann and of course like fucking Jack Sparrow. I think they're what made that series.
When everybody started leaving the franchise, like you could see that they were trying to set up like a new cast of characters. And it just didn't hit. And last thing is like, I think after a certain point too, you have to realize that these sequels aren't working. Like, a lot of movies I think fail for that. Like we were bringing up the stuff from the 80s and stuff. It's like the Halloween series. You had 1 and 2 of the originals, which were the same night, and 2 kind of improved too. It was a whole new location. It was a new cast and stuff like that. Kind of doing the thing, but not as successfully. Then you had 3, which was supposed to be a whole new movie. It's like, hey, all of our Halloween movies from here on out are going to be an anthology series. This is the start of a new anthology. We're not going to do Michael Myers anymore. And then it's like, oh, that didn't work. So here's Michael Myers coming back to life in number 4. And now we're going to try to start up this storyline about a cult and make him like a weapon for the cult. And it's like, okay, well, you're trying a little too hard now.
Yeah. But like those movies are definitely, slasher movies are definitely like turn off brain, watch movie type of movie.
I mean, Jason X is one of my favorite movies and it's a fucking awful movie. Like,
Just turn off your brain.
Yeah, like you're not supposed to look too hard into slasher movies.
yeah, it is like franchises that just like go on for so long as like a cash cow. You're always going to get diminishing returns. And I think if you like can wait for a good sequel, like not 15, 20 years, like, you know, Top Gun, or 40 years, like for Top Gun to have a sequel. I mean, if you do it right, yeah, it can be successful. But I don't think you should have a good sequel. I don't think a good sequel should take you 40 years to put out.
I agree. I think a sequel
Avatar
worth
2.
mentioning right now. Yeah, I was gonna say Avatar 2, actually. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard really good things about the second one.
This franchise is so weird because again, it's James Cameron. And it's like, who is seeing Avatar 2 to make all this money again?
Disney.
Because thinking about it, I'm like, aside from the main character, I can't tell you a single goddamn name from the first movie.
You've got one more on me, buddy.
You've got Blue Man Group.
Blue Man.
I know it's that movie.
Like, Avatar is just so weird because it's like, you know, Jake Sully, because it's like she says it's stupid.
Yeah,
like, the pronunciation is so it sticks with you. I can't tell you any of the other characters' names. I can't tell you the villains' names. I can tell you about the big badass. I can tell you, yeah, it's Stephen Lang's character.
There's a white man, military white man.
Military white man. That's his first name.
Interesting.
First name military, last name Whiteman.
White man.
Military Whiteman.
But all I can really remember about that movie in terms of progression is just the big battle sequence at the end of it, like with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really all I can remember about that fucking movie.
It's Pocahontas with aliens. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is Pocahontas with aliens. And I mean, when we're talking about like franchises and stuff, I mean, we'd be remiss to not talk about Marvel and how even they at times had better sequels than the original. Like Captain America 2, Winter Soldier is probably one of the better sequels of that whole initial
in general, one of the better movies in the MCU.
Yeah, and the thing is, you take Captain America, you just build on it. You introduce a new cast, you build on everything.
I will fully admit to having slept on the Winter Soldier for years and years.
It's so good.
But it's so good. I finally had Disney Plus. I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna watch it. I was like, wow, this is because the only bit I had seen of it prior to that was the elevator scene where he like beats everybody up. Just like masterpiece.
And I think what makes that movie so good is that it's not just a superhero movie. It's like, we're not going to make this a superhero movie. We're going to make this basically our 80s spy movie.
Yeah.
Like blended into a superhero skin.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's just it keeps building on, you know, those original plans and all that. But then we get to the problem of third movies.
Yeah.
And that's where they seem like they dropped the ball a lot.
Jurassic Park. I will say I'm a sucker for the third one because I was still really young when it first came out. So I loved it. And
I mean, the cast is great. It's like the cast is great, but like just the movie idea itself is stupid. It's like, oh, I've lost my son on this dino island.
Your son's dead now.
It's like, yeah, if your son parachuted into an island infested by dinosaurs, well, fuck that kid. He's gone. Like
he deserved it.
Do you have another child you can put all your love and attention on? like what happened to your brother? He was killed by dinosaurs.
That's pretty badass. All right, next.
But like
it's 100% rode on having the cast, like having Alan Grant again.
Alan Grant, William H. Macy's in that movie. Like people sleep on William H. Macy as an actor. I love him as an actor. And then it's like, hey, we're going to introduce this new dinosaur that kills the T-Rex. Like, or kills our T-Rex, because apparently that other T-Rex is the one in the new trilogy.
Yeah, that's the same Rexy.
Yep, same Rexy.
Speaking of a terrible spinoff, all of that can fuck right off.
I think when the movie franchise has entered the second trilogy is when it's like, can this just be its own thing? Like, can we just reword some of these names and change names and stuff and just make this a new franchise? It's like, why do we need Jurassic Park 6?
Just use existing names.
Like,
you don't understand money.
Yeah. But it's like Aliens 3 is
Mhm.
awful. It is a bad fucking movie. Because it's like, hey, we just gave you this whole movie of kick-ass Marines and a fuck ton of aliens and then a queen where she fights it in a giant construction robot. And then it's like, here's 3 where she's in a prison and there's 1 alien. It's like, okay, maybe there's some thought behind this. No, it's just Ripley and
It's just
the
one
inmates.
again.
It's Ripley and the prisoners versus the alien.
You can't
Fucking-
go back. You can't. Whenever you do the sequel, you can't go back. You have to keep going forward and building. And I think some franchises don't expect to get that next movie, so they just like build up to this ridiculous degree, and then like, oh shit, I can't actually build on that anymore.
I
Mhm.
think when Ridley Scott made Alien, he was like, this is going to make enough to be successful, but I'm probably not going to be able to make a sequel to this. And then it came out and it was like, bitch, you thought, give us Aliens too. Like, and then it was like, hey James Cameron, give me Aliens. Because it's like, he made this sweet ass movie called Terminator, right?
Yeah,
So we're going to have you make our next Alien movie.
yeah.
And
Fucking RoboCop.
oh god, let's not talk about the
Uh,
travesty that is RoboCop 3. Like that. See, RoboCop's another one of those series though where it's like the sequels do just like slowly trend down. It's like RoboCop 1 is just a great movie because it's Paul Verhoeven. It's Paul Verhoeven, which I think is his name. He's the guy that did Starship Troopers. And he did RoboCop. So he does all like the satire stuff during the movie, the commercials, all like the crazy like product placements and stuff like that. Because it's a satire movie. It's like, oh, this cop is
Yeah.
a robot kind of thing. And then they're like, hey, we need to make a sequel. It's like, oh, let's build this like crazy RoboCop with this like criminal's brain in it. And I don't even remember what the fuck the third one is. I just remember he gets a jetpack.
Yeah, I don't know. It goes off the rails. It's like, let's take a beloved, like pretty solid series, and it's like make
You
up a
don't
fucking
have to keep
situation.
making sequels. Like, let a movie be successful on
yeah.
its own.
Let a cult classic stay a cult classic. You don't have to
And
capitalize on it.
That's the thing. And it's like, we'll get into probably topics of like movies with sequels coming out or movies that we hope don't get sequels kind of thing. But
what is the name of that one Xbox game? It's a third-person shooter with like the chainsaw gun.
Gears of War.
Here's a war.
Gears of War. That one.
Yes, that
has
one. That one is the same
entirely
case.
minigames.
Like
Yeah.
Gears of War
Yeah,
1,
it's the
pretty
exact
good.
same case.
Gears of War 1, pretty good. Gears of War 2, absolutely fucks. It's a great fucking game. And then
Mhm.
Yeah.
3's like, how do we end this trilogy? Like,
Exactly.
And they came out with 4, and they're like, no.
Huh?
that's the thing. It's like,
There's a
It
fifth
came
one?
out-
if you're doing a reboot series, why bring back the original enemies? Why not just
Right.
introduce a new thing? Like, it's just like, why? Why are the locusts back? Just give me like, oh, our explosion underground created something new, kind of thing. It's like, no, we're gonna keep
No.
tying it into this
Same
whole,
guy.
whole thing about the queen and now all this other stuff. And
Yeah, same,
Like,
same
God
dude, same
damn it.
brain.
I was like, that's another thing. Don't make a new trilogy just to explain your lore. Like,
If you couldn't explain your lore the first time, maybe you just get better lore.
because I think that's what 4 and 5 did for Gears of War, where it's like, hey, remember that
Yeah.
queen, the Locust Queen that we kind of just like introduced and then did nothing with? This whole trilogy is going to be focused on her and secrets involving her, and it's like, I known her for one game and then we blew her up. Like, why do I care? Like,
Hmm.
it's like there's a horror movie out called It Follows. It's one of my favorite horror movies. It's a small, not an indie film, but a small production. And it leaves you questioning enough that it sticks with you. And I love the movie because it's like, it's so ambiguous at times. And there have been talks of a sequel coming out where it's like, we'll figure out what it is. And I'm like, no, I don't want to know what it is. I like not knowing what the fuck this thing is. Like, that's what makes it so much fun. It's like, I don't need you to make a whole second movie to be like, oh, here's where it came from. Like, no,
Right.
don't do that.
Looking at Prometheus.
So looking at It Follows for a sec. Yeah, looking at It Follows. We'll get to Prometheus because that's a whole fucking mess on its own. It Follows is something is following people who have had sex in a chain with people who have seen it. It is never explained. It just appears.
It's an STD metaphor.
It's an STD metaphor. It appears as a person. You may know them, you may not. That just slowly seems to be coming towards you. And when they get to you, it will kill you. The thing that stops it from getting to you is to have sex with another person. So it's this whole thing of like, how long has this chain been going on? And it's like, okay, here's what you do for a sequel.
Have an orgy.
What happens if the chain is disrupted a la Final Destination style? Like, introduce something that disrupts that chain. You know, something like that. And change up the whole idea behind it. Like, change it, like, here, we've introduced that here's how it starts following you. Take that whole concept, change it. That's what the sequel should be. I don't need to know where it came from. I don't need to know patient zero. I don't need to know all this stuff. It's like, just give me a new way of being fucking afraid of this thing. Like,
have it like evolve. It's a character. Have it evolve.
Yeah. And I think that's what fucked me up with Prometheus. Is like, oh, I'm expecting an Alien prequel. Yeah, we're going to see what that thing was in the spaceship. We're going to see the events that led to whatever introduced these aliens. And it's like, okay, we're going to get to a point where there's an alien, but it's not the alien that we know. It's something else. And it's like, okay, here's the next one. It's still kind of not the alien we know. So it's like, what is the purpose of this trilogy? Because you're only leaving us with more fucking questions. You're not explaining anything. Like, it's just,
you know what series went like a little off the rails as far as like having a sequel that was pretty good, and then the third one was kind of mid, and then they brought it back with the fourth one, and the fifth one was like a swan song of sorts. Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Even starting back in the 80s with like Metal Gear 2, whatever. And then going into Metal Gear Solid, and then Solid 2 was really good.
It has that quality jump that I like in sequels, where it's like, here's one guy in a confined area, and then it's like, here's one guy in a confined area. Game switches to a new character. It's like, ooh.
I really like that. Was a really good when you play it for the first time, and you
play the whole tanker level
on the
tanker as Snake, and then it's like the thing explodes. There's a Metal Gear, and then it's like, here's Raiden.
And here's Raiden.
It's like, okay, this guy surely won't become a living meme in his own game.
I hate to break it to you, buddy.
Yeah, I tried playing it on stream. I just cannot master that combat system, so I'm probably not going to continue playing it. The parrying is so hard in Metal Gear Rising.
The thing is, they went to 3, but 3 was a prequel.
Yeah.
And then they did 4, which is, if you think about it, just the next part of the trilogy. But it's so much better, and it ends so definitively. And then they make 5.
And then 5. The thing is, though, there is a through line through all the stories. Like, the thing is, like, 5 isn't just, like, slapped on either.
5 is also a prequel.
5 is also a prequel, and it sets up this big revelation about the story overall. Again, this whole episode's about spoilers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Big spoiler warning.
Yeah, at the beginning of Metal Gear 5, you get to design your character, which you believe is for the multiplayer mode. It turns out that's what your character looked like before the surgery to look like Big Boss. And it cuts back. Eventually, throughout the game, you realize that in Ground Zeroes, when the helicopter exploded, your character was the medic that was there trying to help get the bomb out of Paz, who's one of the characters.
Yep.
Your Snake in that game goes on to be the big boss in the original Metal Gear. So from Metal Gear through Metal Gear Solid, through all that, the big boss you are hunting is this Metal Gear Solid 5 character you played as. Which means, because Big Boss, the original Big Boss, is gone or dead already. And it's like,
that's how you fucking do it.
That changes like the whole thing behind it. You're like, oh,
I do like how that ties in very nicely.
because he goes off, he creates his military nation, which is the Metal Gear Solid, which is Metal Gear on Nintendo.
Yep.
And all that, and the big boss you kill at the end of Metal Gear 2 is the Metal Gear 5 character.
Yep.
So I was like, what the fuck? This guy just, how did he tie it all back to this shit? Like,
it was very impressive. I'm really sad about how.
And then it
happened.
didn't get to finish, which is why there's like, it feels like there's an entire chapter missing from that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you're supposed to get Young Liquid and Psycho Manus, and then it's like a later chapter was supposed to introduce you to a girl he adopts, and he gives her D-Dog, and you're supposed to be like, oh, this is Sniper Wolf from Metal Gear Solid. Like
You're supposed to be introducing Foxhound.
You're supposed to be introducing the beginning of Foxhound that leads into Metal Gear Solid. But it's just like, Konami's like, no, man, get the fuck out of this office. It's like,
oh well, I can throw people in. I can start taking over castles to kids in America. That's all I need.
Yeah, you can start raiding fortresses to your fucking Walkman soundtrack.
Yeah.
Well, that does reek of like just a Kojima, just being like, what can I fucking do in this game to make it hilarious?
Hey, how many licenses do we have?
I will say, like, Japanese games in particular, or like Japanese developed games, are very good at sequels because for some reason that's all they fucking do.
How did Yakuza not lose quality? Like
Yakuza kept going up. Yakuza's like a fucking anomaly.
Yeah,
or like much to Haley's like chagrin, I guess. Devil May Cry only gets better.
Devil May Cry
tell me
it did like that thing though, where one is good. Apparently, I never beat it, so I don't know. I stopped playing that on stream. Also, 2 is better, and then 3 is supposed to be the prequel game, which people consider to be kind of the weakest of the original 3. And then 4 is like, here's your new character, and then 5 brings it all together with like, here's the new character and Dante again. Like,
yeah, it's genuinely a good sequel because it's like it's the system you know and love, and it's over the top. It doesn't take itself seriously. Capcom's just like, we know what we're about. Here you go.
Yeah.
And what was it? It's like you showed the thing for the Metal Gear remake. It's like Leon can have cat ears.
Yeah. For Resident Evil. Yeah, he's like, he has cat ears now, and then you're just like, thanks, Capcom.
There are more than one. There's more than one Capcom game in particular that goes 1's whatever, 2 is the good game, and then it either goes up or down in quality. And I've got Street Fighter, Resident Evil. I've got Devil May Cry, and Onimusha.
Yes.
Does anyone remember Onimusha?
I do.
Yes.
I do love Samurai Resident Evil.
Yes.
But yeah, it does that thing too, where it's like Onimusha 1 is okay. 2 improves on the combat system a bit, but keeps the whole general feel of it. And then 3 was like, here's modern day, and we have the guy who played Leon the Professional as an actor in this game. Was Gene Reno.
Yep.
I like Japanese developers definitely know how to do a sequel better. I feel like they understand their audience more. They know why their game is popular versus American or like East or Western developers. They're like, we got lucky with this game.
Yeah.
So let's just put out a sequel.
They don't know how to ask their audience, I think, is the thing. And they're
think
no, this is what you want. This is what you want. I'm telling you what you want.
And you can definitely see it in like first person shooters. Like Call of Duty flourished where Medal of Honor failed. Yes. And they were huge like competitors back in the World War II first person shooter days.
I actually watched a video about that. Medal of Honor was always more of like a stealth style game at times. It was a first person wartime like spy game. Where Call of Duty's like, hey man, you know the D-Day invasion? It's the first mission, get out there. And it's like, oh, you're playing the Russian story? Guess what? We're storming Stalingrad. You probably won't survive this. Like, it took that whole thing where it's like, it's not a one-man like spy mission. It's like, you're a soldier. Get the fuck in there. Like,
I think that's why Call of Duty like flourished so much is because they had you in the perspective of just the every soldier.
Yeah.
The guy.
I mean,
the guy.
Modern Warfare is that series for Call of Duty, where it's like first one's fucking great. it gave you the classic nuke scene that it was
Mhm.
like, oh, they're doing something very different here. And then two's
It
like,
was a masterpiece.
two's like, oh, you
Two's-
have this legitimate like cold open where it's like, hey, we're trying to get this piece of tech back. Oh man, it looks like they got into it. And then the second mission's like, Washington's being invaded. It's
Yep.
like, protect the burger town.
And then Modern Warfare 3, you're just like,
And then Modern Warfare
Uh-huh.
3 is like, oh, here's a character that was with him the whole time. We're going to kill a bunch of
Mhm.
your favorites. And it's just like, oh, this one sucks. Like,
Yep.
Black Ops is like that too. Like Black Ops,
Yep.
that's a weird,
Yeah.
I can't really call that a trilogy though. Well, yes, I
it's
can.
not. It's
because it's,
technically 4.
technically I can because it's World at War, Black Ops, and then Black Ops 2.
Mm.
Yep.
Black Ops 3 was like the future like VR world one that they did, and then 4 was just the Battle Royale.
Yeah.
And but like that's another one where I think if it goes into things, World at War is kind of great, but then Black Ops, which is the second game of the series, just blows me away every fucking time I play it.
To be fair, Black Ops 2 is really fucking good.
Black Ops 2 is really good. I love all the drone
Mhm.
stuff, and it's like, hey, what's going on? It's like all of our drones are being hacked, and he is attacking. He's attacking everything. And it's like, okay, cool. The aircraft carrier we're on is exploding.
Oh my god,
that whole mission was great.
Oh, so good,
But
so good.
So when we talk about sequels, what do we like? And it's particularly in video games because it's a little harder to ask for like graphical updates. Between, unless you're doing some shit like Top Gear to Top Gear like 40 years later.
Yeah,
I'll say using Dead Space as an example.
Mhm.
Dead Space 1, your zero gravity section was like you aim at a wall, you press a button, and he jumps.
Mhm.
2's like, we're going to take that. You have flight controls now, so you can fly around. And it's like, hey, we're going to keep all the same weapons. We're going to slightly change up just how the game feels. So instead of being more of like you walking through corridors, like, oh shit, when something going to jump scare me, it's like, here's the enemies you're going to be in front of, and it's just Isaac's like, all right, lock and load, and just fucking blows through a hallway of necromorphs. It's like, hey, you're not going to play a horror game anymore. You're playing horror action.
Yep.
And then
That's
like
kind
same.
of what every horror game does, right? They eventually make the transition to horror action.
Look at 4. Look at Resident Evil 4.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, hey, fixed cameras, survival horror, limited ammo, and then 4 comes around. It's like, let's suplex this guy. Like,
Yeah. Same vein in the Dead Space though. The Dead Space reboot or remake, whatever you want to call it,
the remake, yes.
that brings the flight system from the other games
it-
into the first.
Yeah,
It's
it's like
different.
we're taking the first one, we're going to add 2's flight controls. We're going to not do the weapon crafting like 3, because 3 is where that series went downhill. And then it's like, oh, we're going to take everything you know about the first game and then expand on it. So instead of being like, oh, chapter's over, you're in a new part of the ship now. It's, hey, get on the tram. You want to go back to that first area?
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, so the ship is
gives
open
you
world
explore.
now. Like, okay, cool, that's a good improvement. So it's like if games do stuff like that, where it's like if the first game is like, hey, you're in a confined area, but you can't backtrack, and the second game's like, you have a lot more freedom this game. It's already like fucking good in my book, buddy. Like
Yeah.
The bar is in hell, but like you made it.
it's I'm gonna use a weird example here based
Okay.
on what I know from the Thing video game. I'm supposed to be replaying it, and I haven't started because I was supposed to make a review video on it.
Uh-huh.
The Thing video game on PS2 is, by John Carpenter's words, the canon sequel to the movie. And we all know the movie where it's like, oh, confined space. It's Among Us, the movie.
Mungus.
The game is like, okay, these guys haven't been responding to us. What happened here? And it's a military unit that gets sent in to be like, okay, investigate what's going on. Why aren't these guys talking to us? And it's like, oh, it's suddenly more aliens. Like the Thing has broken into different parts. So it's like, oh, you have a bunch of them running around now. There's this whole like conspiracy going on. Like there's a secret base that the government set up, but nobody was told about. So it's like, okay, we're taking everything we know and you're doing more to it with a new character. And it's like, okay, so not as a same like media style thing, but in a sense, it's like, okay, it's the Thing, but more.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's this thing. It has to take what you like about the first one and just kind of dial it up a little bit. So you're not playing the same thing, but you're playing the thing.
Haha,
The thing.
the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I haven't played it, but I just know a little bit about it. Just, you know,
I haven't played it in
those-
years. I was supposed to be replaying it to do a review video, and I just have not started. So I bought this PS2
Kinda
and have
creative
done nothing
things.
with it. Like this PS2 has been sitting under my TV for about 8 months now, and I have not touched it.
Another. Yeah, go ahead.
No, well, I was gonna say, I feel like video game sequels have a lot more like risk
Yeah.
involved in like movie sequels, because like there's a lot that goes into video game development already. Making a good sequel is like even more difficult versus a movie. It's like, this is what you got to do to make a movie. You don't got to change that, you know?
Yeah.
Versus like video game development cycles, it's like, just because it worked 8 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work now.
Yeah. And let's hope our friend Fannin does the thing where it's like, oh, Remnant 1 was good. Let's see if Remnant 2 will be fucking better.
All I've heard about it has been good things.
I'm excited for it.
But I don't have insider information. I just want to make that very clear. But I just want to say that everything I've heard about it so far is just mwah.
Yeah, I love the first one. And it's like, oh, give me that, but a lot more to it. Maybe new customization, which I feel they do have, and all this other stuff. So it's like, cool, it's Remnant and more.
Remnant New Game Plus.
How do we feel? So another game that I thought went just in an upward trajectory, but only because it aged like shit. The first game, The Witcher.
Yes.
Yeah, no, Witcher 1 and 2
Are unplayable.
unplayable. Completely unplayable, because I got it as a bundle with like Witcher 3 being like the game of the year edition or something like that. I was like, I'm gonna play through all of it just so I know what the fuck is going. It's unplayable.
Have systems that the fact that somebody thought about them and put them into a video game makes me want to find that person and give them a wedgie. Like,
it's so bad.
Truly.
It's so different. You're just like, how did people play this game? Like when it first came out.
It is the most Slav jank of Slav jank computer games.
Squatting Slav jank.
It's literally a bunch of fucking Slavs that are just like, how can we be different than capitalist America?
And then they were like, fucking people like open world games, right? And then it's like, oh, this is one of the best games ever fucking made. And it's like, shit, this is what we had to do the whole time.
Yep,
like,
that's what you had to do the whole time.
But even then, they kept some of those like same fucking systems in the game. Like they simplified them, but it's like, God, you guys don't need to have all these different menus about things.
Now,
and then if you really wanted to count, Cyberpunk was a fucking flop. That's like a sequel, right?
Technically, yes.
From the same company, yeah.
No, because I think in 3, when Ciri's going through like all of her like realms or something, I think she does drop into Cyberpunk. I think it was supposed to be like a teaser for the game, and I'm like, oh my God, are you telling me that these exist in the same fucking reality?
Like, oh no.
Multiverse Ciri.
Yeah, the multiverse of The Witcher.
Multi-track Witcher.
Multi-track drifting.
What about sequels that didn't perform? We talked about a few of them, but do y'all have any other examples?
Oh, I have to bring this up. So, Call of Duty rebooted Modern Warfare, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you talked about this a while back.
Yeah,
you fucking hate this game.
I fucking hate this game. Modern Warfare 1, the remake, is an absolute masterpiece of storytelling. It is so good. And the gameplay is it's a Call of Duty game, right? But somehow it still feels good. Modern Warfare 2 reboot is fucking terrible. I was so angry. The campaign isn't nearly as long. You're on tracks basically the entire game. And it's just so fucking boring. There's like, I don't like any of the characters. You don't have an emotional like attachment with any of the characters. And it has like very few callbacks to Modern Warfare 2, the original one, whereas Modern Warfare had plenty of little like Easter eggs and like a lot of the character. It gives you more character.
Do
origins,
I
right?
protect Burger Town?
No, that's the problem.
Oh, God
You
damn.
don't. And you're
So,
just like,
yeah.
give me at least like some kind of callback. I don't want the same mission.
What's
that
the
mission
point?
was long.
Apparently, I think I remember reading something. I think in the redone Modern Warfare 2, there's a flashback scene to like Russia.
Yes, there is. And
it has the main guy from the original Modern Warfare, Zakiv, I think is his name.
Zakayev or something.
But also
he's in it.
It also has one of the villains from Black Ops in that same meeting. So it's like, okay, so we've officially confirmed that Black Ops and Modern Warfare are the same universe.
Yes. So it like, and there's so much potential there, and it's like just right there, like right at the edge. And then they fucking failed to deliver on any of it.
Yeah.
And not only that, the game was $70.
Yes, it is almost $70.
I'm so angry that I paid $70 for a game to be disappointed in, and I beat it in like 8 hours.
Yeah, so I looked up, I did a Google search of game sequels that killed studios. And apparently there's not a lot of articles about that. But so I found this one, 5 disappointing video game sequels. I forgot that Bayonetta 3 released.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that game came out, and I don't think people are talking about
that
it
game
anymore.
came out last year.
Yeah.
There was a lot of
Hey, Alvin, you want to talk about the Halo franchise?
No, but yes.
You want to talk about how the first 3 Halo games are like some of the pinnacles of fucking game stories, and then they're like, hey bitch, here's Reach, and we're like, thank you. And there's like, here's Halo 4, and it's like, you can take it back.
Halo was one of those games that I loved so much, the series, that I read the fucking books for, right? Which are canon, and they're so fucking good. Halo lore is so fucking good. But Halo 1, 2, and 3 are masterpieces. I must have put like 600 hours in the demo version of Halo Combat Evolved alone.
Correct.
In the fucking demo version,
Correct.
okay?
Yeah.
But, and Bungie did what they were good at. It was just fucking storytelling and having just an immersive universe. And then fucking, I didn't even like Reach, if I'm 100% honest. I didn't like Reach very much. I feel like 3 would have been a perfect ending, but that's only because I read the books about the fall of Reach, right? So I felt like those were way better than the game.
I think it's more of like, here's the legend of like the fall of Reach, but then it's like, it's what people think about it, and then you're playing through like this very personal unit, like during that time, which probably hits differently.
Yeah, because everybody has their own version basically before that game came out of like what happened in Reach based off the lore, right? So you kind of have your own sort of, it's like your own little fan fiction about all that. But you know, putting it something like giving something like substance takes away, it kind of takes away from the like your, you know, headcanon of what might have happened.
Yeah.
And then fucking Infinite, it makes me so angry. It's not a bad game, okay? I want to say first and foremost, it's not different. A bad game. It's different, and like I'm glad they brought it. Like Halo's definitely grew into more of a multiplayer game than a story game, just like Call of Duty. But I play games for the story. That's still what I do. That's why Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 pissed me off so bad. But like Halo Infinite, it's so frustrating, man. I love these games, and they ruin it because they're like multiplayer makes money.
I just played Titanfall. I just played Titanfall 2 on stream. That game, I'm like, the fact that I did not play this fucking sooner is a travesty. Like this game fucks. Like this game.
100%. Yes.
And I was
Titanfall 2 is one of my all-time favorite games.
And I'm like, this is how you take everything from the first game, which was just a multiplayer game. And it's like, here's what we could have been doing. And then it's like, it's just, hey, look, cool, I'm being introduced as like this grunt, and I really like this captain. Captain dies. It's like, here, I'm gonna give you my robot, and it's like, I'm gonna be emotionally invested in a mech suit by the end of this game. And then my character talks, and I'm like, Matt Mercer?
I have a lot of feelings about Titanfall too.
It was so good.
Titanfall
and I'm like, I was having a great fucking time because every mission felt different.
Yes,
every mission
100%.
was like, okay, none of this is fucking stale. I was just fighting for survival in the first mission, and now I'm doing like this, like fighting through like a sewage plant to try to escape. Now I have this like time travel device, which is fucking weird.
Time hopping is such a
And
good
then
sequence.
the last 3 missions were like, hey, you've regrouped with your army. The last 3 missions are just nonstop. Hey, stop the super weapon.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. I'm loading into this mission. I'm like, am I going to get out of my Titan? And then it's just like a Titan like level warfare against each other. It's like you and like
It's
7
so
NPCs just like tearing
It's
through
so
a base.
good.
And I'm like, I'm having a fantastic time playing this.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
then you
like-
get to the
It's like
end,
when you're-
and you're like, "Oh no, I'm not ready to be
You're like-
devastated."
You're like, oh man, there's things escaping. And it's like, hey, we're fighting on these ships. Like we're on
It's
these
like when you're
fucking
7
carriers
and you're
flying
playing
through
with
the
it-
atmosphere.
It's like when you're 7 and playing with the Transformers.
Oh,
They're-
100%.
it's just-
Yes,
That's
it's
the
just
final
that.
stage.
It's just that. It like out in video game world.
And then
But
yeah,
the
it's like,
problem is, it's like it devastates you. Oh
it
my
does, because like you
God.
hear it's like a throw, and it's like, okay. And
It's
it's
like,
like,
I've done this. I've done this like 4 or 5
yeah,
times before.
He's thrown us off of a flying carrier onto another ship so we could take control of it. And then it's like, hey, we're going to do this thing, and then I'm going to save you with this. And I'm like, I'm crying over a robot. Like,
Yeah.
like what the hell? And I'm like, just give me 3. But no, they're too busy with fucking Apex Legends.
Well,
So-
all right, we're going to talk about this. I'm very, very angry about this because Titanfall 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and they canceled development on Fall 3
Yep,
because they released Apex Legends.
they did a stealth release, by the way.
for free. Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
they were like,
because
"Hey,
EA
we're not-
was releasing
EA was
Anthem
like-
at the same exact time.
Yeah, they were releasing Anthem, so Respawn's like, we're just going to drop this battle royale that feels like Titanfall's multiplayer with the movement and everything.
Mhm.
It's like, we're just going to drop this in an already saturated market of battle royale games. And it fucking just took off. So then they're like, we're going to invest all of our time and energy into this and not make Titanfall 3.
Yeah, and they were
And
like,
I'm
we
like-
canceled Titanfall
like,
3.
You can do technically both of those. Like, you can put a team aside to
But
do
the thing that
thing.
drives me nuts about EA, right? Because Respawn is such a great development studio. They could do Titanfall 3, but they decided, hey, we're EA. We're going to fuck all the fans over, and we're going to put the team from Titanfall on fucking Jedi Survivor. It's
Which-
not even the same genre.
Which is
It came out really
something-
good though.
which is
It
something
is really good.
that EA does, because they
Yes.
also took Visceral that did Dead Space and said, make our next Battlefield game.
I just,
But
That game
luckily,
sucks, though.
the guys at
Baffles
Respawn
me.
are just built different, and Jedi was still good.
yeah.
Like-
and then so they also
Truly.
developed the VR version and then the new sequel that's coming out too.
Yeah.
So
So-
I'm not mad at them for doing that. I'm just mad that I don't get a Titanfall 3.
Yeah, so looking at looking at just a brief history of Respawn, I mean, it all ties back. These guys were leads at Infinity Ward. They were doing they did Modern Warfare, the original one. Like, then they did Modern Warfare 2, and they built, I think that was like a trade off. So they were like, hey, you can do our thing and then we'll let you do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They dropped Titanfall, which is a good fucking game. It's just a multiplayer game. And then they dropped this absolute, like, literal titan of a fucking video game in Titanfall 2, and it was like one of the best games we ever fucking made. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're going to make a battle royale game for, what's the quote here? They're opening a third studio to keep Apex Legends going for 10 to 15 years. Like,
Oh,
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I love Apex Legends. It's a great battle royale. They keep it fresh, and they have.
She's in it.
Yeah, that's true. She plays
So-
Valkyrie.
here is what I am excited for, because Respawn is working on Star Wars stuff still. Like, they have their
Yes.
Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. But they
Mhm.
also
Jedi Fallen Order 2 is coming out soon.
They also
Yeah,
are
that's
working
Survivor.
on a Star Wars first-person shooter, which I kind of want to see how that plays out, especially if they keep the same engine as like Titanfall and Apex.
You keep hitting like weird trigger points for me.
Hey, you're back. We
Uh-huh.
gotta have you talking about something.
It's so weird. I don't know how you do it. All right. One of the
been friends
best
for
Star
decades.
Wars first-person shooters is Star Wars Republic Commando,
which we
You
never got
cannot
a
tell-
sequel to.
We never got a sequel to. And if this first-person shooter isn't at least a little bit like that, I'm gonna be so.
If it's
mad.
not a from the ground up remake,
That's what I said. Or a sequel. The original game ends on a cliffhanger. It ends on a cliffhanger, and all of the expanded universe books never expands on it.
yeah.
I fucking hate you, LucasArts.
But I think I've been trying to get this game to also fucking run on modern systems. It's like it does not run well on modern
doesn't.
system.
But
I've been trying to play. I've been trying to play this after so many years. But yeah, it's the thing is I don't even think they. Okay, so they were supposed to. A sequel titled Star Wars Republic Commando Order 66 was released on mobile phones. Another sequel is already planned and ahead of production, called Star Wars Imperial Commando, and was based on the betrayal of Republic soldiers. However, it only went as far as concept art and was canceled. Nevertheless, Karen Travis wrote a fifth and final novel of the Republic Commando novel series, titling it Imperial Commando 501st after the canceled sequel. So I don't know if that does anything.
It doesn't, because there's a character, spoiler alert, this is a really old game, by the way. I was in middle school when this fucking game came out.
Yeah, this game's fucking what? Yeah, 05.
Yeah. So Republic Commando ends on a mission. So the premise is you're one commando in a squad of 4 that are basically your battle brothers. It's very like Band of Brothers, like you against the world. You're super high special ops. So the very last mission, everybody starts splitting up one by one, right? Until you're the last one trying to fulfill the mission. Nobody dies, but they're on your radio the whole time. But one character, he's kind of like the tough guy. His name's Sev. You hear over the radio, he gets attacked, and you don't find his body, and it sounds like he's being drug away. But you don't get a resolution to that because you meet up with your other 2 battle brothers, and you don't know what fucking happens to Sev, and it's so fucking angry because nothing talks about it.
Respawn, this better be a fucking sequel.
I've been waiting since 2005, dude. I was a kid when this came out. I was so invested, and I played it again like probably a couple of years ago, and I was still so angry that we didn't get anything after it. I'm so mad.
I've got one more thing before we stop recording because it's already been about an hour.
Yeah.
What about? It's not technically a sequel, but a game that furthers the series, like a Final Fantasy or
I think
technically like that sort of thing.
That's franchise. Japanese like franchises or like role playing games usually don't follow a single storyline. With the exception of the ones that do follow a single storyline, I'm looking at you, 13, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And also probably not the best, probably the more forgettable games in the series, so they probably learn not to do that again.
10-2 was a lot of people's bisexual awakening.
Yeah, 10-2 is a great game. It's different. I think that was the first time they did something different.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was still a fun game.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to grade those as sequels. I definitely think like you could just title those games by themselves and it would still work. Like you can call Final Fantasy 7 a different title and then Final Fantasy 8 a different title, and it's like they would still sell on their own.
I think at that point with the Square Enix just needs to be like Final Fantasy is the system, and then we need a subtitle. Like there needs to be a subtitle.
Or make a game like game title like a Final Fantasy story. Like you don't have to call it Final Fantasy 17.
I think
we're on
tried that.
16's coming out, right? Like we're up to that. I think now.
Yeah.
So
I think they tried that with Crystal Chronicles and it did not do well. So
Crystal Chronicles is a great game. Like it's a 4-player Final Fantasy on the GameCube. Fantastic.
I think they did a sub game of that, and they tried to put a Crystal Chronicle story, and it did not sell nearly as well.
Well, it was also
people don't read the fine print.
Yeah, I guess, but they're also like I think that's also a game series where it's like it's Final Fantasy, and you're mostly going for the people behind the games,
right?
Rather than the actual franchise. Like, okay, we know that these people make good games, so we're going to buy these games. But they're also using it.
Been the same since Nobuo Uematsu left.
Every game is adding new stuff and they're trying to change the formula. So it's also like a weird testing ground. But then you can get like the Breath of Fire series where it's like, when was the last time we got a Breath of Fire game? Or a
Legend of Dragoon.
I mean, if Charlie was here, he'd want to talk about that.
I got you, buddy.
Legend. And the thing is, I don't think that Legend of Dragoon had talks of a sequel, but I could be wrong.
I thought Breath of Fire was at least in the same world, but just in different points of time.
I think it is.
I think with Japanese developers, I don't know, they're on a different level where they can put out essentially different games, a la like Metal Gear, Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy, whatever, Legend of Zelda. Like they can put out these big titles that are like changes from the original formula.
It's the name that's always going to bring people,
right? But then, like, even with like Western developers don't do the same thing, right? Like Call of Duty, it's the same thing every year, right? It's the same formulaic bullshit every year for the most part, and like, or any of the sports games, stuff like that. But like,
the thing is, I feel like sports games could just be DLC like updates.
100%. As somebody who plays F1 games, yes, 100% without a doubt.
But Sharky, money.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's for the money. But it's like I'm looking at like Japanese like franchises for role playing games, and it's like Pokemon. You're always going to buy the Pokemon name. Red, blue, gold, silver. It's always going to be Pokemon. That's what's going to be the slap to the wallet that it wants it to be. And I mean, Monster Hunter, you're going in knowing what to expect. You know, it's like, hey, we're going to be hunting monsters. Dark Souls, it's basically a genre at this point. Like
it made its own genre. Yeah,
it made its own genre.
Yeah.
The Yakuza games, I think, are single-handedly the only thing keeping Sega afloat.
The only problem with Yakuza, you have to have karaoke in it, right? Like,
yeah, you have to.
Now. Yakuza isn't the only thing. The gachapon machines are keeping Sega afloat.
Yeah, that's fair too.
But yeah, like Yakuza is such a weird game too, because I was playing it. I was playing through Zero for a bit, and I'm like, oh, this is like a murder mystery. This is like a mystery. Like, who owns this plot of land that everybody's trying to get rid of? And I was like, this is actually like a really cool, like, crime mystery, and I was digging that. And then it's like, you can sing karaoke in this bar if you feel like it. It's like, okay, I'm like, okay, that's. I hear Yakuza has a lot of side stuff, and then it's like, what is this phone card that I can talk to like models on? And is this game giving me the option to be friends with this convenience store clerk? It was just like one thing after another was hitting me, and I'm like, this is a Yakuza experience.
I think what it is Japanese developers don't take themselves super seriously.
They really don't.
Like there's tons of humor in every game they do, even if it is a Souls game, even if it is, you know, the Yakuza games, the Legend of Zelda games. There's always humor in it, and I feel like just Western developers take themselves way too seriously. And when they try to do humor, it feels forced. Yeah,
Japan has that very God, what's the word? It's like it's a very distinct style of comedy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It's like when I'm looking around in Yakuza at the bar and I see a guy in his underwear dancing by like a staircase, and I'm like,
this is normal.
This is normal here. Like, this is normal in this world. Like,
yeah, but if you have that Easter egg in like a fucking, I don't know,
if I'm playing
Jedi Fallen Order game,
if you're playing through Call of Duty, and it's like, oh, if you go to this room here and look out this window into this other building, you'll see an Easter egg, and it's that same thing, and people are gonna be like, what? Because the audience is obviously different. Like, you're coming in expecting something super serious.
If that, you're like, here's this Easter egg. If you look out this window and it's 9/11, you're like, yo.
Yeah, and man, there's like so many series that I think deserve like an actual sequel that just haven't gotten them. Of like, I mean, Beyond Good and Evil is getting a sequel eventually. I'm still wondering when they've announced it. Like, it was announced years ago. Hopefully, it's not another Duke Nukem experience.
Duke Nukem forever.
But
Ooh.
Republic
More
Commando,
like never.
Republic Commando deserves a sequel.
Yes.
I think some of the PS2 games that I play like deserve either a remake or a revisit at some point. Because when I was playing Evil West, I'm like, this is just Dark Watch on PS2. Like, this is Vampire Western.
Hell
And
yeah.
I didn't want to talk about like canceled sequels and stuff, but maybe if we need an episode next week, we can do some research into that, because I know a lot of games did have sequels that just fell through.
Titanfall
And
3.
Yeah.
Titanfall 3.
We were just talking about one.
Dark Watch 2 was supposed to be a thing. Freedom Fighters 2 on PS2 was supposed to be a thing, but it's just like, nah. Yeah, I mean, if it's not a money thing, if it's just something that the studio wants to do because they love the project, I think that's where sequels are at their best.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like if we made a game and it's like, we only plan to make one game. We plan to start the story and end the story here. And then somebody's like, hey, we'll give you a bunch of money if you make a sequel. It's like, are we going to do it because we want to, or are we going to do it because it's a bunch of money? And the answer is it's a bunch of money, and then we're going to try our best. So,
Yeah. I'm not gonna say no to a bunch of money. Is all
but
I'm
the same
saying.
thing is like, it's the same thing that comes with, it's like, hey, we're giving you all this money. We want you to add some stuff, which is what happened to Dead Space 3, where it's like, add multiplayer, add weapon crafting.
Mhm.
And it's like, those don't fit. Like, those don't fit. It's just, and it ruined the franchise.
Yep.
That game is,
Oh, well.
that game and then Battlefield are single-handedly responsible for why Visceral closed.
Yikes.
So,
Oh, well.
but yeah,
But
I guess we're good to call it here, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That was
my
fun.
passionate speech for the year.
Yeah, you
Don't
got some,
worry, you'll
you
get
got some
another next
really,
week.
he got really heated about the Top Gun and then the Titanfall game and the Republic Commando. Alvin had some
Yep.
real passion in this
Alvin
episode.
Alvin has capital O opinions on this.
It falls right in my niche. So like,
I wish we
Hell
had Haley
yeah.
here. I wish we had Haley here so she could gush about
Devil May
Devil
Cry
Devil
5.
May Cry 5, which she has been playing, and
Mhm.
She's gone back to replaying, I believe.
Yeah, she's
she's
gone back to
finished the game
replaying.
once already.
because she got a new gaming computer.
We love that for her.
So we're not going to do our usual outro, because the outro that is at the end of this episode actually was put together to kind of explain a lot more. We've expanded where the podcasts go. You can find us pretty much on most podcast services now: Stitcher, Pandora, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you go. So that's all there.
You
And,
just said you have this all in the outro, and
I'm
you're
giving
explaining the outro.
I'm explaining the outro. Yes. And then next week, we're not only going to have our usual episode for the podcast, but Deca and I and X will be back with our second episode of the wrestling podcast that we do now, as WrestleMania is this weekend. So we're going to have a very long
So is Super Card of Honor.
Supercard of Honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
I
need to
don't
figure
know
out when
any
to,
of the stuff.
we need to figure out when to record that, because I think we scheduled that conversation for Wednesday, which is our normal recording day.
Yeah. Hey, I'm down to just do a whole thing of recording on Wednesday.
My week is very busy. I have a session 0, and then I have to run a campaign the first session on that Sunday. So
Oh no.
I'm
Oh,
in
no.
that.
yes, yep. And there'll probably be a teaser for that over on the Dummies and D20s Twitter on Friday.
Yeah, you can go look at that.
And start
You can
throwing out some stuff there to get people hyped, because we're about 6 weeks away from the first episode of that new campaign coming out. We're gonna
Let's see
spend,
what chaos I bring.
yeah, we're gonna get some episodes pre-recorded. So our first session will be this Sunday. We'll get a few weekends in, and then we'll have an episode to drop in May. But we'll figure out when to get next week's recorded. So you guys may or may not see a without context episode, but we'll do our best.
Woo.
As long we'll get something out there.
They'll get something out there.
So thanks everybody.
Alvin, you're part of this.
So thanks everybody for being here tonight to listen to us talk about our thoughts on sequels and franchises and Alvin's capital O opinions on things. And
Caps
yeah,
lock on.
caps lock on. He's oh god, he's typing in the Discord.
Oh no. The NSA is watching him right now.
And yeah, we'll hopefully see you guys next week with a new episode.
Bye.
For everybody here, take care everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Without Context podcast. If you want more content, please follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/@WCNetwork. If you want updates on the show, follow us on our Twitter @WCPodNetwork. Additionally, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for the Without Context podcast.